So hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, you will learn how to create an animated ToDo app with Flutter for all platforms. But in this video, I will show you how our app looks in Android, iOS, macOS and website. Features that will be included in this app is shown on the screen like add ToDo, delete ToDo, complete ToDo and many more. Please do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the notification bell. So without wasting the time, let's jump right into the video and let's see how to create an animated ToDo app with Flutter for all platforms. Alright guys, so over here, as you can see over here, here's my project open in Android Studio, and here's my pubspec.yaml file in which we have installed two packages for creating an animated ToDo app. The two packages are, one is for our database and second is for our slidable delete widget. We are using the Flutter package for storing the ToDo that the user will be entering in the specific device the user have opened our application, whether it is Android, iOS, website or a softwares. And the second package that we have installed is for slidable delete animation. As we will be including the animations in our ToDo application, so this is the main animation that we will be including. For an example, if the user have added a ToDo and he wants to delete that specific ToDo, so we have added a slidable widget to that specific list tile. So when the user drags it from left to right or from right to left, there will be a delete button displayed. When the user clicks on that specific delete button, the ToDo will be deleted and it will also be deleted from the database. So yes guys, these are only the two packages that we will be using for creating our animated ToDo application. The link will be provided in the description below to install the package in your Flutter project. Alright guys, so now I will be going through my folder structure that I have set up for this tutorial video, and it will be really easy for you all guys to understand how we will be going through this process. I will be explaining you the roadmap in which from where we're going to be starting, where we're going to go and how we will be finishing it. So if you will follow the roadmap and if you will go step by step, it will be good for you all guys to learn it and to understand it in a proper way. So now I will explain you my folder structure. As you can see over here, here is my lib folder in which I have created multiple directories. So the first directory is a data directory in which I have created a database.dart file. This file is going to be including our database code for storing the ToDo in the specific user's device. Second directory is pages. In this I am having my homepage.dart file in which I will be having all code that will be displayed in my front end. I mean to say, like you can see over here, my app bar and my ToDo that the user will be entering or deleting or input for adding the ToDo will all be written on homepage.dart file. Now let's come to the third directory. Third directory is utilities. I have just named it as util. It's just a short form. In this I do have three files. You can just take it as a component. I have created one file for dialogbox.dart file, second is for mybutton.dart file, and third is ToDoTile.dart file. So dialogbox.dart file will be used for displaying a alert box in which we'll be having our input and adding and deleting button for adding the ToDo or cancelling the add option. Second, mybutton.dart file is used for creating a button. So what we need is that we don't want to write multiple code again and again for creating a specific button. So we'll create a mybutton.dart file in which we'll be including a code for creating a button that we will be calling wherever we need to show the button and whatever title we want it to pass. Third is the ToDoTile.dart in which we'll be styling how our ToDo that the user is going to be inserted will be displayed. And the last and the main is our main.dart file, which you can see over here. That is just going to be calling our material app, in which we're going to call our home page that is defined in our pages directory. That simple. So now I will let you know how we will be going through, like from which file we'll start, second file which we're gonna go, third is which file we're gonna go with, and the last file which we'll go with. So first we'll start with main.dart file. As you can see over here, there's nothing to show over here. We do have a simple Flutter code in which we are returning a material app, and we have called our home page. Alright, and in homepage.dart file, you can see over here I have a stateful widget in which I am displaying a simple app bar, in which I do have this menu which you can see over here, a title of Animated ToDo App, and a profile image in clip rect. That's simple. So first we will start with our database code. Second, we will work with our dialog box, how we want our dialog box to appear. Third, we'll go and style our button. Fourth, we'll style our ToDo tile. And then the last thing what we're going to do is these three that we have created, we will be just using it to design our front end and to add our functionality. So without wasting the time, let's start writing the code. Alright guys, so in my database.dart file, first we're going to be importing our Flutter package that we have installed by just writing the command of import package and the package name Flutter. Simple. Now I have successfully imported the Flutter package in our database.dart file. Now for creating a code for our database, we're going to be creating a class that you can name as you like. For now I'm going to name it as ToDo database. And in this class, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating a list variable of ToDo list actually, which is going to be an empty array. So I'll explain you why we have created this array variable. We do have a ToDo list variable created over here, which is an array in which we will be storing all of the ToDos that the user will be entering. It's that simple. Now we need to reference our box. So I'll just provide a comment over here, reference our box, so it will be really easy for you all guys to understand. So the source code will be provided on my GitHub, and the link will be provided in the description below. You can download, and the installation instruction will be provided in the readme.md file in my GitHub repo. So you can just follow the installation and you can do any changes you like. So for referencing the box, what we're going to do is we're going to be creating a variable. We'll name it as my box, and we're going to call our database that is hive.box. To reference is to box. And now let's name our box. For now I'm going to name it as my box, as it's a string. Depends on you, whatever you like, you can name your reference box. For now I'm naming it as my box in my box personal variable. Now what we need is we need to write a function to load the data from the database, and we need to write a function for updating the database when the user enters any kind of a ToDo, and when the user opens the app, load that specific ToDo that the user have entered and which is stored in our database. So first let's write a code to load the specific ToDo from the database. So I'll provide a comment over here, load the data from the database. As I told you earlier, it will be easy for you all guys to identify that this line of code is written for what and what this line of code is going to do. So now let me create a void method over here and name it as load data. And for this, what we're going to do over here is that we're going to be selecting our variable that we created earlier over here, that is ToDo list, which is an array, and we need to load all of the data that is stored in this specific array. So to load it, we're going to select this variable that equals to. Now we're going to be referencing our box. So we'll call our box variable, that is personal my box, and we're going to be getting our to-do list. So let's name it as to-do list. Simple. We're gonna just write this specific line of code inside this load data function to load our to-do list that is entered by the user in our to-do list variable. Now let's write a code for updating our database. I mean to say that, for an example, if the user is entering the to-do, we need to add that to-do into our database and store it. That means we need to update our database every single time the user is making changes in the application, whether he is deleting or whether he has successfully completed his task. So let me provide a comment over here like update the database. And for updating a database, I'm going to again create a method over here that is going to be a void, and I will name it as update database. And in this we are going to get our reference box variable, that is my box, and in this I'm going to be using the put method to insert that specific to-do inside our to-do list variable. So for doing that, we're going to select that specific to-do, and what I need is I need to insert it. So comma, where I would like to insert it is to-do list variable. So I will just call it over here to-do list. Simple. And I will end it by a semicolon. Great. So in this database.dart file, we have written a code from which we'll be loading the data from the database and from which we'll be updating the database. Now what we need is, for the first time when the user comes to our application, by default we want how our app will look like. We want to display the user, this is how our app will look like. So for that we need to add some dummy to-do. Am I right, guys? Yeah. So how we will do that, let's see. So for that, whenever the user opens the app for the first time, we need to run a function. So for that I will be writing a function over here. I will just call it like, I'll just comment it like run this method if this app is opened for the first time. So whenever the user is installing your app and opening it for the first time, we will display a dummy to-do added in it. I mean to say task. So for that we're going to create a method, void method over here. We'll name it as create initial data. Simple. Create initial data. In this we will be selecting our to-do list variable, which is an array, okay, that you can see over here. Now what I need is, in this array I will be adding dummy to-do. So for that, inside this array we're going to be having multiple arrays. So first task that I will be adding by default, I will name it as like welcome to our to-do application, and it's not completed, so I will set it to false. Okay. Now second task, I'm going to be adding total like 2 tasks. Okay. Second task is like create your day to-do. Okay, these are my default tasks that I'm adding over here, so I will set it to false. Depends on you whether you wanted to show whether it's completed. You can set your boolean value as true. So for now I'm going to show that it's not completed, so I'm setting my boolean value as false. Perfect. And now you need to end this array with a semicolon. Great. Alright guys, so now we have all set up our database.dart file, in which we have learned how can we load the data from the array, how we can update our array, and how we can show our initial data whenever the user opens our app for the first time. Alright, so now let's style our dialogbox.dart file. in which we will be showing an alert and the user will be entering the to-do for their today's task. So first let's import basic package that is provided by Flutter, which is known as material.dart. Right guys? Yeah. Okay. So for creating a dialog box, we are going to be using a stateless widget and I will name it as dialog box. So whenever I need to display this dialog box, I will just call my dialog box stateless widget. I mean to say you can just go with like a function. So in this return statement, I would like to display a alert dialog. So I'll just call that specific element alert dialog. Now over here we'll be creating a controller for our input and all. Let's go with it at the end. First of all, let's start styling our alert dialog box. So for it we will be providing it a background color. Let's go with like color dot from argb. I have actually defined the color in my text file, but still for now I will just go directly other than finding the text file where I have saved it. Alright guys, so after defining the background color, now let's get a content inside this alert box. So I will be having a container. In this container, first of all, I will be setting my alignment, main axis alignment. So first let me provide the height to my container, which is going to be 150 pixel. After that I will be having a child in this container, which is going to be a column, because what I want is that whatever is displayed, like it should be displayed in a column, not in a row. So first I will display my input, then I will display my button for adding that specific to-do or for deleting that to-do. That will be inside a row, but our items like input and buttons will be displayed in a column. So that for that we are taking a column widget. In this column widget we'll set its main axis alignment, which will be like space evenly. Perfect. After that the column is going to be having a children's. So I would like to display a text field. For entering a to-do, I will style it regarding just for a simple animated design. The first thing is that I will be changing the text color to white. After that I will be passing a controller to this text field to get the text that the user is typing or submitting. We'll go at end for that. Before that, let's style our alert dialog box. So let's provide it a decoration, in which we are going to select input decoration. Now we are going to style the border. So for that we're going to display outline input border for our text field, and we'll be having a border side to which we'll be providing a width of 3. And now let's provide it a color, which is going to be colors.black. Great. After that we'll be having a label text for our text field and a hint text for our text field. So label text, which is going to be like enter your task. And then we'll be having a hint text, which is going to be add task. That will be displayed on the top when the user clicks on the text field, just for a simple text field animation. Now let me style my label text. So for styling my label text, I will be using the label style, and I will select my text by the text style property and change its color as per my need. I will go with white. Alright, so over here I have successfully created my text field. Alright, so now what is happening now in our alert box, we do have only text field defined. We don't have our button defined for saving that specific to-do. I mean to say for adding that to-do or for deleting that to-do, cancelling the alert box. So for creating a button, we will be going to our mybutton.dart file, but before going over there, we will just get whatever the user is typing in our text field. So to get that, we'll come inside our text field and pass it a controller that will be creating after a few seconds. We'll just name it as controller. So now let's create this controller over here. Let me create our controller. Great. Now let me create a void callback for onSave and onCancel button that we will be creating within some time. So let me create a void callback onSave and onDelete, onCancel I mean to say. Great. Now I will be requiring my onSave and onDelete and my controller inside my dialog box key variable. So let me require the controller, require onSave and required onCancel. Great. So we are all set over here, but we can see that we are getting some issues over here. So for fixing this issue, what we need is actually, guys, we want to remove this super key over from here, and we can see that we have added a key, so we'll name it as super dot key. Still we can see that the error is not fixed. So let's see why the error is being displayed. We are requiring our controller, we are requiring our onSave, and we are requiring our onCancel, and that's it. All things are set up over here, but still the error is being displayed. So for fixing it, what we can do is we need to remove this const. Okay, boom, guys. So remember, guys, whenever you're creating a project or whenever you're creating a tutorial related regarding to a Flutter course, you will face some issues, like when you're creating a project of a ToDo app or a social media application that we'll be creating later on in our Flutter project series. You'll face some issues that you will be just checking, where is that issue? I can't find, my whole code is correct, but why it is showing me the error? So sometimes you will see that the const is added, sometimes you can see the space is added, sometimes you can see the semicolon is added in a wrong place, or a comma is added in a wrong place where the semicolon should be added. So don't be hyper, guys, just go through the code and see, check every single word and you will find the issue. Like now we was getting an issue because of a const defined before our dialog box. We just fixed it. Great. Alright, guys, so now we can now get the value that the user is entering inside our input with the help of a controller. Now let's create our button. So now let's come to our mybutton.dart file, in which we're going to be importing Flutter package. And now we're going to create a stateless widget and we will name it as my button. Okay, and I will remove this placeholder with a const, and now we will like to have a material button whenever this stateless widget is called. So to my material button, whenever it is pressed, what I want is to call on pressed, that I will be defining it later and I will show you how this all functionalities will be working. But now we are focusing on our UI design, not on the functionalities that we will be focusing later. After that, we'll just see what color we need to provide to it. So let me go with the theme of context, and we'll get a primary color. After that, what child will be defined in this button, that we will be deciding whenever we are going to be calling this specific button. We will be providing that text that will be displayed in this button. So for getting that, we're going to have a child in which we are going to call a text inside a text widget. So for getting that specific value, we will be just creating some variables over here. For a text, we will create a string variable and name it as text. And for the onPressed function, we will call a void callback that we have done in our dialog box dot. Same thing we'll repeat over here and call onPressed function. After that, we are going to be requiring this text and the onPress. So required this dot text and required this dot onPressed. Perfect. Now as you can see, error is because of this const. So we can select and we can delete it, and our error is successfully fixed. Great. So now over here we have successfully styled our mybutton.dart file. Let's come back to our dialogbox.dart file, and now let's call our buttons wherever we would like to display it. So after the text field, I would like to display my buttons. So I will come over here, and after my text field, I would like to create a row widget because I would like to display two buttons in a row, but it should be displayed in a column. So I'm calling my row widget inside a column children. This row, I will be assigning it a main axis alignment. I will go with center. And now I will be having a children. Now I will display my first button. To display it, I will be calling my button. So my button, simple. When I do that, it will be auto imported. So for example, if I just scroll back to the top, as you can see, the package, I mean to say my mybutton.dart file, which is located inside a utilities folder, is imported over here. If I scroll down, as you can see, it's asking for two values. One is on text and one is the onPressed function. So for text, we will be assigning it a value of add, and when it is pressed, we will be calling a function that we have created that is going to be onSave. Alright, so now that's it. We have created our first button. Let's create a second button. So same thing will repeat again. We're gonna call my button and assign it a text that we are accessing in our mybutton.dart file, which you can see over here. We need a text that we will be passing to my button, that we will be just providing it over here for each buttons, whatever text I would like to display differently. So the second button is going to be for cancelling, and when it is pressed, we will call a different function that is going to be on cancel over here, that we are not defining it manually in mybutton.dart file. I'm saying whenever it is pressed, just ask for on pressed, and we're defining the different methods wherever we are calling the button. Now I need some gap between this button. So for that, I will be having a sized box. So I'll just create a sized box, and we will be providing the size box a width of actually 8. Simple. And we will be ending it with a column, I mean to say comma. Alright, great. Alright guys, so now we have successfully created our dialogbox.dart file, and we have successfully created our mybutton.dart file. Now let's style and create our ToDo.dart file, I mean to say like how our ToDo will be displayed when the user adds it. So let's come to our ToDo.dart file. This is the last file for styling. Then we'll be coming to our front end, in which we will see some results being displayed in our Android emulator. Now actually we are working with back one, how we will be calling all these things, how it will be displayed. Alright, so now let's style and create our ToDo file. Okay, so in our ToDo file we are going to be importing two packages. The first is going to be the material.dart provided by Flutter, and the second package that we have installed for slidable delete animation. So import the package which is named as Flutter Slidable. Great. We will be using the Flutter Slidable widget. As I told you earlier, we will be using it for our slidable delete animation for our ToDo tile. After that, we are going to be creating a stateless widget and we will name it as ToDo tile. Great. So before creating the ToDo tile design, we will be creating some of the variables and some of the functions. So over here we're going to create a string variable which is going to be the task name that the user will be entering. Second, we're going to have a boolean value. As I told earlier, for completed task or for uncompleted task, we will be assigning a boolean value whether it is true or whether it is false. We will name it as task completed. And now we will be having two functions created. So first function is going to be a boolean, which is going to be for boolean for our task whether it is completed or not. So we will be naming this function as onChanged. And second function we are going to be creating, which is going to take a build context in it. Perfect. And we will name this function for deleting. So delete function. This function will be used for deleting the specific ToDo tile. So we have named it similar like delete function. Now just remove this const as we have done this mistake earlier, and in this we're gonna require this variables and the functions that we have created. Alright guys, so now we have required all of our variables and functions and the error is removed. Now let's start styling our ToDo tile. So first I will be removing this placeholder and I will be having a padding widget, and I will be providing a padding from the edge insets. So const edge insets dot all, we'll go with only, and I will be providing the padding only from left, which is going to be 15, and I will be providing the padding from right, which is also going to be 15, and from top that I will go with 25. Great. Inside this padding widget I will be having a child, and in this I will be using my slidable package that I have imported. So slidable widget. Perfect. This slidable widget is going to be taking a start action pane and a close action pane. What does this mean? It means, sorry, not close, it's an end action pane. This means whether the user slides from the start will display some different, or whether he is sliding from the end, from the right hand side will display a delete button. But for this tutorial video, what we are going to do is from the both side we are going to be displaying a delete button only. If you want, you can just slide it on the left, you can just go with like a task completed, but for task completed we're going to keep it simple. We will be having a checkbox animation. Okay, in this we're going to be having a start action pane. Okay, in this we're going to be having an action pane. Okay, and now we can provide an action like motion. First of all, we will be providing a motion. What is like from where the user will be sliding. Of course it's going to be a stretch, so we'll be calling stretch motion. Perfect. Simple. After that, action pane is going to take children in it to define your delete button. So over here you can select slidable action, in which you can have an onPress function, and for this we will be calling our delete function that we have created above whenever the user presses this button. And now we'll be selecting an icon for it, which is going to be delete icon. And now we'll be providing some background color to it for styling it, so it will be really easy for you all guys to see it. I will just go with like red, and I will be providing it some shade of 300. And at the end I will be providing it a border radius, which is going to be 10. Enough. So I will explain you in detail what is happening over here right now. We created a slidable widget in which we are having a start action pane. Start action pane means when the user drags the ToDo tile that will be inserted from like this, like from left to right, we will display this button, that is our delete button. For now we'll repeat similar thing, will be for our end action pane also we're gonna be having the same thing. So for doing that, if the user drags from right to left, we need to display a delete button. So just copy your start action pane and paste it once again. And now name this as end action pane. Same thing, keep everything same and similar, delete function and a delete button. No need to change anything because you keep everything same. Now after this action pane, we are going to be having a child. Actually, let's come after the action pane. This is our end action pane, and over here we'll be having a child of our slidable widget in a row. Now what we need is in a row, our slidable design is finalized. Like we are having our tile, the user will be dragging it from left to right or from right to left, we will display a delete button. That is set up. Now what we need is, guys, we need to display a content like a checkbox and a ToDo title that the user is entering. I mean to say a task that the user is entering. So that we will be displaying in a row and in a child of slidable widget. Alright, let me just go and drag it. Okay, in this row we will be having a children, and the first thing we would like to display a checkbox as I've shown you in the intro. With a checkbox is going to be having a value that we're going to select task completed variable. Whether it is true or whether it's false, it's going to be just changing the animation of the checkbox. After that, we'll be having this onChanged. When the user clicks on that, which function will be called? The function that we have created above for a boolean with a boolean value, that is onChanged, we will be calling it right over here. Now we can style our checkbox. So I don't want my checkbox to be in a default shape that is called square with some border radius. I want it to be totally circle. I want it in ellipse. So for that, I will be passing a rounded rectangle border, and in this I will be changing the border radius to 20. Now we can even change our checkbox active and inactive color, or our check color also. So now I would only like to change the active color. Inactive color will be by default, that is going to be white. So colors.purple for the active checkbox related to our ToDo application theme, and the check color, I mean to say the tick mark color, we're going to change it. Let's go with white. Perfect. Okay, so now we have successfully defined our checkbox. After this, what we need is we need to have a like our text. So depending on the user who will be using our application, whether the user will be writing 2 words of text, or the user will be writing 5 lines of text, or multiple lines, like I mean to say like paragraph of text. So how can we make our app responsive in it? So we don't want like user to enter a single word or a single line. User can even enter multiple lines. So we are not gonna directly use text. We will be using an expanded widget in which we will be importing, in which we will be using our text. So it will be helping us to make our ToDo tile responsive. So whether the user is writing 100, 200 words of text, it will be responsive and it will be displayed in line wise. In column, in a row. So I will show you over here. After the checkbox, just create an expanded widget. In the expanded widget, we are going to be having a child which is going to be a text for our ToDo task that the user will be entering. So it's going to be a task name variable that we have created above. And over here you can provide max lines depending on you. For now, the max lines, we are going to go 200. Of course, no one is going to write this much lines, 100, 200. Max will be like 20 to 50, that's it. But still we'll go with 200. For an example, I will be showing you at the end of our tutorial. And after that, we'll set the overflow, which is going to be ellipse. So text overflow dot ellipse. So why we are setting it? What happens normally when you have created a text tile, when the user will be entering multiple lines of words of code, text, it will be overflowing and it will be just breaking our tile, and it will go outside and it will get an error displayed in a yellow black lines that it's not responsive, it is being overflowed. So for fixing that, you can set your overflow for the text to ellipse. After that, we will style our text depending. So I will select my text style, and here we'll be having a decoration for our whether it is completed or whether the task is not completed. So if we are going to select our task completed variable, if it is true, that means the task is completed, we will set our text decoration to line through. Okay, or if it is not completed, we'll set our text decoration to none. Great. After that, we will be selecting the decoration color over here, and we'll set it to purple. What does this decoration color means? The line through text decoration will be showing a line whether the task is completed. It will show a line above your text. It's cutted, So you can change the color of that specific line by writing decoration color and change the color as per your need. For now, we're going to be following the theme of our ToDo application, that is purple. So we'll just go with purple. And you can even select how much thickness you want for that specific line to be visible to the user. So for that, you can select decoration thickness, and we will set it to 1. And now what I need is, I need to even make the opacity of my text less. It should not be much visible when the task is completed, so the user can easily understand, yeah, I have completed this task. Because sometimes what happens, the line through will not be displayed properly to the users who are having some eyes problem. So we can just add this thing. So what we are going to do is, we're going to select the color of our text, and we're going to say if my task is completed. It's true. We're just going to change the color from ARGB. Task completed is true. I'm changing the color. It's not color, sorry, it's color, from ARGB. And the value is going to be, first value is going to be 147, 255, 255 and 255. Great. And then if it is false, I'll keep the default color, that is white. Alright, and now I would like to even change the font size of my text. That is going to be like 14. Great. So now successfully we have styled our ToDo file, in which we have learned how can we like whether the task is completed, if it is true or if it is false. How can we just style it? If it is true, we need to have a text decoration line through. If it is false, we should have none text decoration. We can even change the color. We have learned something new, like our decoration color and the decoration thickness. Right guys? Alright, if till now you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the notification bell, as I will be continuing this series and we will be getting so many nice projects and big projects to be created, like Instagram clone and all. So yeah, please do not forget to subscribe to it if you wanted to follow the series together. Alright guys, and comment down below guys whether you are liking my video and the explanation, whether you can understand it or not. You can comment down below, I would like to reply you. Alright, so now let's come to the main part and let's see how the changes are implemented. Okay, so here's our homepage.dart file, in which we have only created our app bar. Right guys, now we will make our ToDo app look good. I mean to say, we will be importing my button, ToDo tile, dialogbox.dart file into our homepage.dart file to display it in our Android emulator, as I said you earlier. Right guys, so let's start working with our homepage.dart file. So now before starting our homepage.dart file, let's init our Hive database. So let's come back to our main.dart file and let's use our Hive Flutter for storing our ToDo that the user will be entering. So for that, let's import our Hive package. Hive_flutter and Hive_flutter.dart. Great. And now come over here and now init your Hive database. So I'll just comment it over here like init the Hive database, so it will be easy for you all guys to understand where is our database code used for initting it into our application. We're going to be using an await, so we'll need our async function being running over here actually. So do one thing over here guys, I'm going to just comment it over here and I'm going to come to my function that is going to be main function, and I'm going to return it as an asynchronous, and over here I will be having my comment of init the Hive database and use the await and select my Hive database, and we will be initting into our Flutter. Perfect. After that we will be opening our box. So once our app opens, our main function is going to be running, and that time only we need our Hive database Flutter to be run in our Flutter application. Right? So over here we will be having our box variable defined, variable of a box for opening a box, and we will be using the await. Select our Hive, and now we'll be opening a box that we created in our database.dart file, and it is named as my box. Am I right guys? If you forgot, I will show you it right over here. In our database.dart file we have created a variable, I mean to say of box name, named as my box in my personal my box variable. Okay, and now that's it guys. So now we have successfully initialized our database, Hive database, in our main.dart file. Now let's come back to our homepage.dart. Okay, now we'll be importing some of the packages that we have created. So first package that I would like to import is of course my Hive Flutter database package. And the third package I would like to import is going to be not a package, it's going to be a file, a Dart file that is for our database. Let's come to our fourth import, in which we'll be importing our dialog box. Now I would like to import my ToDo tile dot. Alright guys, so we have done with our import statements. Now over here what we need to do is that we need to just call our Hive Flutter database that we will be dealing it in later. So for calling that, we're gonna create a variable naming it as my personal mybox and select my database Hive, select the box that is named as mybox. Simple. And now we will be selecting our ToDo database that we created in our database.dart file, which you can see over here, the specific class in which we are referencing our box and in which we are having all functions for loading it to date from the database, from updating the database, and from running it for the first time. We'll name it as db and now we'll call it. Simple. We created a variable of db and we called our ToDo database that is located in our database.dart file. Amazing. Now coming over here, we will be having some functions created. So let's create it, but later after designing our app UI, we will be calling that functionalities. Alright, so the first thing, let's complete it for our database. Let's complete the code for our database. So over here we will be having an override and we will be having an init state function called. If this is the first time we are going to be opening the app, then we'll create a default data which is stored in our database.dart file. I'm right, in a variable known as ToDo list. This is going to be our initial data. So let's see how we can call our initial data and store it into our ToDo list variable when the user opens the application for the first time. So for that we're gonna run if and else loop. We're gonna say if mybox.get ToDo list is double equals to null, then I would like to create my initial data. So I'll select my db, from that means I would select my database.dart file in which I do have a function created that is ToDo database, and we will just call the function that we have created in it, that is create initial data. That's it guys, to load the initial data for the first time when the user opens our application. Else if it is not the first time the user opens our application, we'll just load the data, and for that we have created a function that is load data. Great. And then we will run our init state. So super dot init state. Done. Great guys. Now let's create our function. So we'll be having our text editing controller as we created earlier in our dialogbox.dart file, right? So let's create it over here. So we'll be having a final controller and we'll call our text editing controller. Perfect. And now we will create our functions that we need. So let's name it as, the first function will be for creating a new task. For now we'll keep our functions empty, we're just creating it, so we'll not get any issues when we'll be calling it, when we'll be passing the function name in our buttons. Second function will be checkbox changed. Now let me create a third function that will be for saving a new task into our database and our variable to show it in our front end. and the last function will be for deleting the task from the database. Of course, then it will also be deleted from the array variable that we created in our database.dart file. Simple guys, it's really easy. Okay, so now we have successfully created all the functions that we needed to apply the functionality to our ToDo application. Let's work on the front end. Let me scroll down over here. As you can see, here was our app bar. After our app bar ends, we'll be having a floating action button for adding the ToDo. So let's call floating action button over here, and floating action button widget. Okay, so whenever my floating action button is pressed, I would like to call a function that I created above, that was create new task. This function will be called. When this function will be called, in this function will be having a code for just opening our, dialog box.dart file that we have created. Okay, and we'll be passing it an icon in a child that is going to be add. Perfect. Icons.add. Now if I do save it, as you can see over here, we do have a floating action button being displayed, but once I click on it, nothing is happening as we don't have any code inside our create new task function defined. After my floating action button, I would like to display a column in which we'll be displaying a list view, in which our list will be displayed, my ToDo tile. So for that, let's have our body selected, in which I will be creating a column widget. I will be selecting it, and in which we'll be selecting children. And now if you want, you can even create a search box. If you need a tutorial on how to create a search box for your ToDo application, if the user have added multiple ToDos and need to search for the specific one, we can use our search filter method in it, but I will be not showing in this tutorial video. If you need on how to create a search filter for ToDo application, comment down below. I will create a tutorial video and in which you will learn how to create a search filter for ToDo application. Alright, so we'll be having an expanded widget. Actually we don't need this children, but still we will be having it, as we'll go with column. Right, in this expanded widget we'll be having a child for, and we'll select list view dot builder, and we'll select item count, which is going to be our length of our ToDo that the user have entered. So in our DB we're gonna select our ToDo list and its length. Simple. After that we'll be having our item builder, in which we'll be having two values, one is context and the second one is index. Now we'll be returning, what we want to return is ToDo tile. So we need to call our ToDo tile that we have imported, actually that we have created in our ToDo.dart file. Okay, so it will be taking multiple values as we have defined it over there. One is going to be the task name, second is going to be whether the task is completed, as it will be changing the design of our ToDo tile regarding to these values. Third is going to be on changed function, that we will be defining it over here, and the last one is going to be delete function. If you come to ToDo.dart file, you can see over here we have created all this. Like when the user presses this, we're going to call a delete function, and all things are defined. We're taking these values: task name, task completed, on changed, and a delete function that we are defining over here for specific ToDo the user will be clicking on. So for the task name, we are going to be selecting it from our database by selecting the variable that is ToDo list and passing the index in it, and which value needs to be selected by default is going to be 0. For our task completed, same thing we're going to repeat. We're going to select our ToDo list, and for this, which value will be selected is going to be 1. So maybe you're not going to be understanding why we are entering these numerical numbers. I will explain you. Like for 0, I mean to say, if I come to my database.dart file, we can see over here we are having an array in which we are having two values. One is a string and one is a boolean value, and the index for this string is 0 and the index for this value, boolean value, is 1. So for selecting this, we are providing an index of 0. For selecting this, we are providing an index of 1. Got, guys? That's it. So for on change, what we're going to do is, when it's going to be changing, we're going to be selecting the default value that is applied, and then we'll call our function that we have created that is named as onBoxChanged, and pass the value that we're going to be getting, and for that specific index only we'll be just changing that. Okay, now in our delete function, we'll be selecting the context for deleting that specific ToDo tile, and we will call our delete function, I mean to say delete task function, and I will be passing the index in it. Great. Alright guys, so now we have successfully designed, now we have successfully designed our ToDo tile, how it will be displayed in our front end. Now we need to work on the functionality to add ToDo, to check ToDo, to save ToDo, to delete ToDo. Am I right, guys? So first we'll be starting from creating a ToDo. Okay, so for that we'll come to create new task function over here that we have created. In this, we will be displaying our show dialog box that we have created, in which we will be having the input. So I'm going to select my show dialog, and in which we'll be selecting the context, and then we'll be having a builder which is going to be taking context, and over here I would like to return my dialog box that I have imported, and I will pass multiple values that I'm asking in my dialog box.dart file. That is, the first thing is the controller, second thing is an onSave button function. So when the user clicks on the onSave button, we're going to call a function that we've created down below, that is save new task. And on cancel also we have created a function down below. We'll be passing it to our dialog box, that is going to be navigating, and we're gonna select our context and we'll pop it up. By mistakenly I told you that we will be just calling a delete task function, but for this dialog box, when the user clicks on cancel button, we're just gonna pop that dialog box up, I mean to say we'll disappear that dialog box. So for that we have called navigator.off context and pop it up. Simple. Alright guys, so we have successfully created a new task functionalities. Now let's work on whether it is completed or not. So checkbox. So over here in our parameters, we are going to be having a boolean value. First is going to be for our value, and second is going to be an integer for our index number. Am I right, guys? Specific index only needs to be changed, and that specific index tile value only needs to be checked. For that we are selecting their value, and the index, main thing is index over here, and we're gonna set its state. So in this I'm going to select my ToDo list from my database, specific index, but what I need is I need to select its boolean value, I mean to say I need to change its boolean value. So I'll be using the I don't know how to pronounce it, it's like exclamation mark or something. You can comment down below how we can pronounce it. We're just gonna use this symbol. After that we're gonna select our database, in which we'll select to-do list, and we will select our index and change its value, boolean value. Simple guys, that's it. It is simple. I will explain you what I have done over here. I selected my to-do list boolean value, and when the user clicks on the checkbox, we'll be changing it to opposite of the value that is applied over here. So for that we're using this symbol. Great. After that we'll be updating it into our database. So for that we're going to select our DB, and we'll call this method that we have created in our database.dart file that is named as update database. Simple. Alright guys, so now we have defined the functionality for our checkbox changed. Now let's scroll down, and now let's write the functionality for saving a new task or for deleting a task. It is simple over here. Okay, come to your save new task function and select set state, select your to-do list, and for adding, of course that needs to be added into our database also, right? And our variable to array variable named as to-do list. So over here we're gonna select our controller to get the value, user's value, and the second value is going to be false by default. That means the to-do will not be checked. Of course the to-do is not completed by default, so I'm setting the second value as false. And after that I will clear my controller, and after that I will be navigating the user. After the to-do is added, I would like to pop up the dialog box. So for that we'll be selecting navigator dot off context dot pop it up. Simple. After this we'll be updating it into our database. So for that I will be calling this update database method that we have created in my database.dart file. If I show you over here, update database, as you can see it over here, right? Simple guys, that's the code that we'll be writing for saving our new task. Now the last functionality, that is delete task. Delete task in its parameter is just gonna select the specific index, because when the user calls the delete task function, we need to delete that specific to-do that the user is trying to delete. So for that we'll select that specific index, and we'll use the set state. We're gonna select our db dot to-do list dot remove that specific at the index the user is trying to delete, and over here we're going to be updating it into our database. So we'll call the method update database. That's it guys, we are all set, but still we are getting an error that is saying that did you forget to call your hive.open box. Let's see whether we forgot to call it or not. Actually we called it. Let me just see, recheck the code once again. Everything is good to go. Still we are getting this issue. Let it reload. Okay, so let me just open my terminal and do a hot restart for our application. Boom guys, all things are good. We was just facing the issue because of the restart problem, actually reloading problem. So now we have hot restarted it. So as you can see, now I have successfully opened my application for the first time. So we are getting these two tasks being displayed over here. One is check and one is create your day to do. Alright, so now we'll see how the functionality, whether it is working fine or not. Okay guys, let's see how our app is working fine or not. Here we do have two tasks being displayed over here as we have started our application for the first time. We can check it. We are having all of our animation working, our check animation and our transparent animation for our text and a text decoration. Great. So now let's see whether the delete action is working or not. Let's slide our to-do. Alright, let's click on delete. Okay, our to-do is deleted. Let's slide it from left to right and let's delete it. Everything is working fine. Let's add a to-do. and let's enter a task, like let's enter it like editing video, and let's click on add. Alright, it's added successfully. Now let me quit my application, and now I successfully quitted my application, and now let me open it back. As you can see, everything is stored into our database. Now let me add one more to do. Whether I click on cancel button, our dialog box will be popped up. And now let me enter a new task, and now let me name it as simple. I will go with like YouTube tutorial for now, as I'm not getting any kind of an idea to enter in my task. Let me add it, and let me check my editing video. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit my application. Now my application is quitted and my app is not running. Let me open it back. As you can see, it's not displaying me anything. Why? Because my app is not running my server. So now let me run my server back again, and now we will see whether it is stored in our database or not. What do you think, guys, whether it will be stored or not? Of course it will be stored. So our app is running successfully. It opened, and as you can see over here, our both of the tasks, one is completed and one is created newly, is stored in our database successfully. Alright guys, so now we have successfully created our animated ToDo application with Flutter, in which you have learned multiple of things that will be included in Flutter course. Right guys? So if you like the tutorial video, please do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the notification bell. And I will see you in the next amazing tutorial video.